and welcome to the FinTech Finance Virtuina. And today we're going to be doing a little profile on 3S.Money. Joining me today is Ivan Zhiznevskiy, the co-founder and CEO of 3S.Money. Ivan, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm good, Doug. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, as an absolute pleasure. And I guess, really, can you give us a bit of background to 3S.Money, please?
Yeah, sure thing. 3S.Money is a bank challenger that connects its clients with their customers in foreign markets. So basically what we do, we issue IBAN accounts for businesses that would like to roll out their services or sell their goods in foreign markets. Therefore, we bring them over to their clients so their clients can pay them as if they are locals. All right, so I can bring up a very simple case where, say, there is a business from Vietnam that likes to sell their stuff in Britain and the Netherlands, for example, and rather than collecting those payments on SWIFT from these markets and make their clients to suffer when they go to the bank and try to wire funds to Vietnam, they can collect them locally.
That's incredible, and I think that's such a brilliant thing to do in a world that seems to be separating in more ways than one. Now, Ivan, I really want to get a bit of background to yourself and really find out how you came to create or co-create 3S.Money, please.
Well, you know what, Doug? Actually, in my previous life, I was a journalist. I worked for BBC World Service ages ago, and back in 2009, I moved into the fintech space here in the city of London. And I worked in a number of ventures, including peer-to-peer lending and things like that. And you know what? I ran into an awkward situation a few years ago when I was supposed to pay for my daughter's summer club down in Brighton. And I was paying from a foreign bank from continental Europe. And the payment is delayed for some reason. So the summer club is calling me up and like, where's the money? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to check with the bank. So I bring it to the bank and there's support service there. And they say, okay, we're going to investigate. Your ticket number is 12345. We'll be in touch in 10 working days or so. Well, nobody knows what's going on. And then in a week's time, I receive a call from the support team, and there's a very concerned person with, this sort of voice that I did something wrong, and says, the payment is under investigation with our compliance team because we identified that you are paying on behalf of another person. And this is prohibited, this against the anti-money laundering rules, blah, blah, blah. Are you paying on behalf of someone else? And I'm like, yes. I'm paying on behalf of my daughter. She is 5. Okay, she doesn't have a bank account. Can you believe that? Okay, so that's how I basically arrived at understanding. And I was talking to some other, clients of ours, and everybody at the time had lots of problems with international payments. Wiring funds from one country to another raises all sorts of flags and checks and everything else. And big banks, they simply struggle to understand what's going on. And basically, this problem gave birth to such an amazing ventures as Revolut, TransferWise, and 3S.Money at the end of the day.
Brilliant. And as we brought up just at the beginning, it's so critical that, and almost absurd that we're still in this point of finance where you can have that level of confusion when it's just making a simple payment. I find that incredible. Now, I also think we're going to tackle and unpackage all of that further on in the discussion. But also, I'm really interested in the name 3S.Money. Where did that come from?
Well, 3S basically stands for 3 Sigma. Okay, 3 Sigma is standard deviation rule. It's coming from math statistics. It's a math formula in a sense that covers 99.7% of probabilities of a future event. That means that at 3S.Money, we can cover our clients in 99.7% of all possible outcomes that uncertain future can bring. Okay, and the rest is just force majeure.
Well, I mean, that's the kind of reliability you want from a financial services provider.
Indeed.
And I guess one thing, it would almost be unfair to categorize this now after fintech has had such a brilliant decade. But when you still think of a challenger bank, you think of retail banking. You think of the kind of bank that is trying to attract the 20 somethings as they make their £1 coffees or wherever they are. But I think 3S.Money, you guys tackle a slightly different sector of the market. Am I correct?
Yes, that's entirely correct. We service businesses of a specific segment, basically mid-sized corporates with an annual turnover of, well, 10 to 20 mil in average in pound sterling. But yes, you are absolutely right, Doug, because when you speak of challenger banks, you would rather picture, well, a retail sort of service or mobile app and the card and things like that. And that's great because that's how every big industry emerges. Firstly, you go after consumers because consumers are early adopters for any new technology, right? Because you see a nice shiny pink card, Monzo card. Yeah, you just go for it. You're having a coffee, you register an app, and you're getting your card. Okay. With a business, especially with a complex cross-border business with some 50 to 100 employees, decision-making process is slightly different, right? Because the cost of an error is, well, can cost you more than just a cup of coffee, right? So yeah, firstly, consumers go for new technology and then businesses follow. And for businesses, you have to develop slightly different sort of service where you have to hold their hand throughout the process. You need to educate them, right? They have to understand how new technology would tackle their problems, how it would save time, effort, and cost for the business. And that's our mission. So basically, we educate, yeah, we hold our client's hand, and that's the secret sauce, basically, for our service. That's why our clients, they love our customer service, because it's not just some random person or a chatbot picking up a phone or answers on a chat, right? There's always a human being that understands the business, understands what you're up to, can trace a big payment, and sort you out in, well, 99.7% of all the situations that you may experience.
That's incredible. That's such a big issue now that we've seen, because I hate to bring it up all the time, but the pandemic did show that businesses, medium-sized businesses, can be at the heart and the backbone of the economy. And they can't make these mistakes and they can't be early adopters because the risks are too much. Now, you've brought up something I was actually going to bring up later in the conversation, your no chatbot policy. As someone that finds them absolutely frustrating, it's incredible to hear. Can you talk us a bit more about that workflow, how you make it work, and what was the impetus for that idea?
It's all about the speed these days, isn't it? And I think that COVID-19 pandemic proved the case as well. So basically, if you shop on Amazon, and well, you pick up whatever you're up to, right? And it's not next day delivery. You start thinking, wow, perhaps something wrong with that. Okay, I don't want to go for it because it's not instant, right? It's not real time. Okay, and that's why businesses start accepting risk of new technology, because they want to keep up with their customers' demands, and customers demand instant or near real-time experience. Okay. Chatbots cannot keep up with real-time experience because problems of a bigger business are quite complex and quite unique. Okay, I'm expecting £1 million coming from Philippines, and I have to instantly exchange them into US dollars and pay out to Canada to 10 different firms, 10 different suppliers. Okay, if I miss the deadline, the goods won't arrive. Okay. And my customers won't receive them in real time on next day. So they would start thinking that my service is bad. Okay. That's why we're trying to bring up this real time 24/7 experience to financial services and to payments.
That's absolutely brilliant to hear. Customer service has always been part of the fintech revolution, but it seems that the concept seems to be slipping in a way, because there's now such huge adoption of these fintech services that the only way you can interact with people is through this kind of uh, quite cold conversation with a robot and using AI. So it's brilliant to hear that your businesses, especially when dealing with cash flow problems, which is not one of the number one problems for a lot of businesses, they can get those answers so quickly. And you've brought up something as well, and throughout your discussion, obviously you brought up the instance of trying to pay for your child's summer camp. But for businesses as well, with this cash flow problem, they're starting to see IBAN discrimination from sending some of their money cross-border as cross-border payments and globalization improves. So would it be easy to assume that within SEPA there would be, the single European payment authority, there'll be no IBAN discrimination? Because I've started to hear that this might actually occur. And what would that mean for a business that is facing IBAN discrimination from their bank?
Well, it's a quite technical problem, IBAN discrimination. And we faced that when we were rolling out our in-country IBANs. We now supply those IBANs in 6 different countries in Europe, UK, and even Russia. And what happens when you start issuing IBANs in a new country? Think of an IBAN as of a web address. Okay, so you type in the web address and you get to the page with the content, right? But in the heart of that web address, basically, there is a core server name, which is called a BIC. Okay, it's like 4 letters and 2 numbers in it. Okay, and once you come up with a new BIC, you have to make sure that all the banks across SEPA or SWIFT area, well, across the globe, basically, would pick up those BICs on their database and match it with IBANs. So essentially what it means to a customer, okay, I want to pay to a new financial institution that just started issuing their IBANs. And my bank says, we don't recognize that address. Yeah, we don't know this BIC. And that's the real problem, because so many fintechs emerge these days, and these big banks, high street banks, they don't update their databases quite often. So sometimes you have to ring up their customer support and say, well, look, it's a new financial institution. Would you like to check with your SWIFT database? They should have this new BIC, download updated version. It's awkward when you have to tell these things to your banker as a customer, but that's the only way you can deal with the problem.
Interesting. It really does go back to that whole communication point, which I think is really interesting when it comes to banking and how we need answers immediately now in this day and age. And I do want to make a correction just there. I actually said the single European payments authority. I meant the single Euro payments area. I do apologize for that. Now, one interesting thing, if we can move back to 3S.Money, is the way that you interact with customers, as we've already discussed, but it actually goes right from the beginning, doesn't it? Your unusual approach, and that is the invitation method that you guys have. Can you tell us a bit more about how businesses can get onboarded with 3S.Money?
Yeah, it comes down to your customer acquisition strategy. Right? If you run customer acquisition through web advertising, like everybody else basically does these days, and it's the right way to acquire customers. But unfortunately, when it comes to businesses, 95% of all the leads you are getting through are complete crap. Okay, and if you're trying to focus on bigger businesses, bigger tickets, that would again require a long decision-making sales process where you contact the firm. They need to have an internal discussion involving their lawyer, accountant, CEO, or things like that. So you would rather do direct sales or acquiring these clients through referral channels. Actually, you know what? 35% of our new clients are coming from referrals from existing clients. Isn't it a fantastic engagement? Consumer products can get their customers online, no problem, right? Because again, the cost of error is low. You would like to try out a new product, you just go for it, right? For businesses, it's good old-fashioned face-to-face, even if it's on Zoom. Yeah, they want to talk to someone to run their own due diligence. As simple as that. That's why an invitation policy.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that's going to be so critical going forward. Just having that caliber of people engaging only means that you get better feedback, and it creates that feedback loop, doesn't it? Where the services and products become better because you know what your customers actually want because they're engaged with you. Now,
exactly. And we're having these conversations with our customers. We want to learn their flow of funds on the first place in order to understand whether we can actually service this flow. Again, the problem in fintech space is the lack of trust, in a sense that there are lots of fintechs out there with nice and shiny PowerPoints, but with no infrastructure. They're still so early stage that they cannot deliver in what they claim they can. Okay, that's how the trust is being lost. Okay, that's why we want to find out exactly what is the problem of our client. For example, a company in the UK that sells their services in Philippines and Hong Kong and Thailand. Okay, these are quite distant markets. They want their customers to pay them into their accounts, and high street banks in this country are not happy with that because they are, well, quite distant markets and a whole bunch of exotic currencies. Okay, we can provide global accounts for them to collect on those markets and then to pay out to their employees and suppliers in other jurisdictions. Okay, we have no limitation on geographies, but we need to make sure that we can facilitate this flow because, again, cost of error for the business could be unbearable. Okay.
I think that's so critical, and you've touched on something that drew my eye when I was doing my intro with you guys was really how much trust and looking at the regulatory side of things is important to your core ethos. So is that correct? I believe like a number of your co-founders were actually from the regulatory side of things. Is that correct?
Yes, they are. I've got two co-founders. One of them is a finance director, and again, he's coming from regulatory background, M&A and asset management. And the other one was automating one of the biggest banks in Baltics for the past 15 years. Okay, the compliance is quite a challenge, and it is key. It forms the basement for any financial services business, especially the one that is involved in cross-border operations. Compliance is very heavy and very costly. But the good news is that with all these new technologies that tackle financial crime, fintechs can really outperform old school banks, high street banks, because high street banks, they used to be universal banks. So they were servicing everyone, consumers, cross-border merchants, financial institutions, holding companies, and they sort of lost their focus. Fintechs are always quite niche. Either they're doing with a specific industry or a specific target audience, doesn't matter, but they know their customers better. And they can deliver a better user journey and a better compliance journey, because compliance journey, at the end of the day, is a part of a user journey. Okay, it's important to understand who is your client and what they do. That's how you comply with regulation.
Yeah, I completely agree, and it does loop back to that. You know, it seems like the more the customer gives you, the more trust you can have with them, and vice versa, which means that the product is ultimately going to be more trusted and better. So, Ivan, I want to kind of, because we're coming up to time, find out what's next for you guys, because it sounds like you have these brilliant fundamentals. And really, the sky can be the limit with these businesses. As you said, that increased referral rate. I mean, what's next for 3S.Money?
Trade finance. Trade finance is next because it's another layer of different problems that SMEs, cross-border SMEs face. Okay, I read through some statistics on cross-border performance quite recently, where businesses were asked what are the main obstacles for them to go global, to expand their services to different markets, to new markets. And the problem number one was basically payment rails. So they weren't able to get the banking coverage on new markets. that's the problem that we can already solve, right? And the next one is basically the lack of finance. So you need finance to roll out a new markets, to get there quicker, and we are very much up to this. So I think that by end of this year, we'll be launching a pilot. We will be providing trade finance to our clients, to selected clients at least.
That sounds absolutely amazing, and it sounds like really the future is mapped out for you and your clients. So Ivan, I think that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for your input. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about you guys in the future.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Doug.
Excellent. And also to all our viewers, you can catch the rest of the series and much more over at www.fintechf.com, and of course YouTube and LinkedIn, where I'll see you in the comments. So guys, thanks very much, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.